Hello everyone, welcome to this part of Active Directory Certificate Service Stack series. In this video, I'll look into ESC13, as you can see on the screen, which involves abusing enrollment permissions over a template that has an OID Group Link configured. Let's first start by covering what issuance policy is and what are OID Group Links. So here I'll just go into my lab environment here. I configured a specific template called ESC13. So if we open it and go to extensions, here we have issuance policies. These are basically additional conditions for issuance certificates, or this can define additional attributes you'll get once you get the certificate. Now it's a little bit confusing, but stay with me. I'll explain this better. And once we work through this, it'll all make more sense. So second part of this is OID Group Link. Essentially an OID, and what you can do with this, you can group it to an AD group. And every time somebody gets this certificate from this template, if this OID is grouped to an AD group, even though you're not a member, you'll assume membership of that group. That's called OID Group Link, and it's configured via a special AD attribute. And yeah, now let's talk about the vulnerability now to have background out of the way. Essentially, this arises when you have enrollment permissions over a template that has this issuance policy configured that is OID linked to a group. And if that group has lots of privileges, for example, if it's linked to like enterprise admin or domain admin, in that case, attacker is able to enroll the certificate, and because it's Kerberos, it's gonna have the membership set up via the ticket. And you can essentially assume that membership by enrolling in this template. And if you're enterprise admin or domain admin, you could do a DCSync. Now let's cover this in more detail. So essentially, this is the article from SpecterOps. I'm gonna link it below in the description. I'm not gonna read the whole thing because I think CertifyWiki does a better job of explaining things. Here, this sentence that kind of summarizes what I just mentioned. That I'm gonna read. So it's possible to configure ADCS certificate template with issuance policy that I just show you. That has an OID group link to a given AD group. So that's kind of what I've been covering, because you can link issuance policy to an OID group link that's linked to a specific AD group, which I'll also show a little bit later how I've set it up. And so this configuration makes AD to the principal authenticating the certificate of this template as a member of the group. So essentially, if you link issuance policy to a specific AD group and you get that certificate via the template, you'll become a member of that group, even though you're not an actual member. So yeah, principals with their own rights on such a certificate template have the possibility of escalating their privileges with the permissions granted to the group. So yeah, as I mentioned before, if that group is overprivileged and you become a member of it because you enroll into the template, you'll assume all the privileges. Now let me walk you through how I've set it up. So essentially, got my issuance policy, which is this one. It's something custom you have to create. It took me quite a while to set all this up. So just to give you a heads up, I'm not sure how practical it is in the real world. It seems like an outdated PIM solution. Essentially, you give people group membership based on certificate template, and I'm not sure how practical it is. Plus, vulnerable to this, but anyways, I digress. So I have this my template that's vulnerable. It has this void, and this is linked to this group called ESC13. And important aspect has to be a universal group and a security group, and you cannot assign any members here, which is kind of interesting. But you can make this a member of another group. But it also has to be a universal group, because you cannot link a universal group. You cannot assign a universal group to be a member of a global group. That's kind of how it works. So the only two options that we actually have to make it a member of are enterprise admins and schema admins. So essentially, every time somebody enrolls into the certificate using this template, they'll assume this void. This void is linked to this ESC13 group, and this ESC13 group is member of enterprise admins. So essentially, whoever enrolls into this template will become enterprise admin. If we look around the template, it's not really misconfigured, like you don't have to supply, I mean, it is misconfigured, but not in an obvious way. You don't supply subject, people don't have like write permissions over it, nothing like that. But authenticated users do have null permissions, which is gonna be really bad, and it's gonna come in handy for us to escalate privileges a little bit. So yeah, that's kind of the setup. Now let's go back to the certified wiki and let's talk about the prerequisites. I'll link this down below as well. You can read more about how this works in more detail, but I think I explained it fairly well. That like, hey, you link issuance policy to an OID, and that OID is linked to an ID group, and you assume membership once you have the certificate. So the key components are certificate template and issuance policy. So we do have that. I just showed you. It has an issuance policy OID configured. The next one is OID Group Link in AD. So it uses the specific AD object MSDS OID Group Link. So we group this OID that I showed you to ESC13 in our scenario. Next one is client authentication EQ. We do have that. I do have it set up. Oops. Application policies, client authentication. So that's all good. And last one is, as I mentioned, enrollment type. Enrollment types. Our user has to have enroll permissions for the certificate template. And yeah, now let's follow the expectation. As always, first we'll run certify find command. I'll give the show number flag. We give the username, password, the make it LRP, and I just do standard out, so we could. So we don't save it to the file. As you can see, it found an OID linked to the template, which is what I have right now. And as you can see, we got our certificate template and certify found an ESC13 vulnerability. And looking back at the prerequisites, so yeah, we do have authentication 2. We got issuance policy and it's linked to the specific group that I showed you, ESC13. And our authenticate users can enroll. So now we'll just go to the next step, and we'll have to request a certificate from this template using our regular user. And this would look like this. You can get all this information pretty much from the certify output. You got your DNS name for ADCS server and CA name. Essentially specify certify request to request certificate. We give it the username, password, the main controller IP. Target is gonna be our ADCS server. In my case, it's Gotham. It might be something else for you. We give it CA, which is batman.ca in my case, and the template is ESC13. Again, just look at this information, you'll get all of it. So hit enter, and it just tells me I already have a certificate. I'll say yes, overwrite it. And we got a certificate for pparka, which is our user. Gonna remove cache. Okay, now what we need to do is need to authenticate using the certificate so we could get the actual Kerberos ticket that will be include the membership for enterprise admin group. And we can do it like this. And we got the int hash, but we mostly care about the CC cache because this now contains the membership for ESC13. This group that's a member of enterprise admin. So essentially it has enterprise admin group privileges right now. For this, you need to make sure you have your Kerberos set up, fire.conf. So this has to be configured for your domain. I have a video for this. It's called how to authenticate using WinRM from Linux. So if you go in there, you'll find all the steps to make it work, and you need to make sure your host file is configured properly. Otherwise, it will fail. Now we just export our ticket. It has enterprise admin rights. And with this, we can do a DC sync because enterprise admins have DC sync by default. We do -K for servers, no fuss, do not ask us for password. I just get full FQDN of our domain controller. Welcome. And specify -DC for DC sync. And boom. From a regular user, so you could say it's just a regular domain user, no specific privileges, no special privileges. And we're able to escalate to enterprise admin and dump domain credentials. And yeah, we can authenticate as administrator because we got the hash. So yeah, now let's talk about defenses. And I think Wiki has great mitigations here. First, I started that. I don't know how many companies have it set up because it was very cumbersome to configure. I'm not sure how practical it is. But then you just go into the template. If somebody does have it and they need to have it and they have a valid use case, number one, just make sure you go into security and remove enroll permissions. So yeah, remove this. Next one you want to do is when it comes to the attestation under issuance requirements, you want to set up either manager approval or authorized signatures. So it's gonna make it harder for management because to manage the certificate, because you'll need an approval or you'll need an authorized signature. So not sure how practical it would be, but at minimum you should set up so only valid users that need this type of permission, that have to be part of that group that you link from OID to an ID group, are authorized to actually request certificates from this template. Otherwise, you'll get yourself an ESC13. So yeah, that's kind of it for me. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions, please ask them in the comments below, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.